me calling live, talking to him. You know, I talked about him just a minute ago. A guy who I watched growing up, those old school days of watching my black college football when I was a kid, and now here I am in the same space to share it, and I'm glad to be able to share it with him. My man, Mark Gray. What's up, Mark?
Hey, what's the deal, P? How you doing?
Man, doing good, man. Good morning to you, man. Glad to have you on, man. I was just having that conversation with the fans out there. I kind of used something I may have upset some folks this morning, some Southern fans, but they know I love them. They know I love Southern. But I kind of compared Southern fans a little bit to the Dallas Cowboy fans, Mark, of those.
Wow.
You know, and I say this because, listen, we know the Dallas Cowboys can't let the 90s go, right? The fans. Them Southern fans, hey, we cannot let the 90s go during those golden years of Pete Richardson. And I guess I had put it together. I'm like, and we keep trying to recreate whatever that was in the 90s. So I don't know if that upsets some folks, but does that make sense to you, what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, it is always hard for a fan base to give up on the glory years that they focused on. And when you add the intensity of being a fan of being a Summer, a Southern, a fan of being, Jaguar Nation or what have you, there's a standard that's been set. Even though it was 30 years ago, there's still the standard. And, if you can't dominate, I mean, we're not going to dominate. The days of Nevada and going, 7 or 8 in a row in the Bayou Classic, just don't think that that's going to be coming back anytime soon. There's too many good coaches coming into the conference. I mean, you had guys like Sam Shade at Alabama A&M. It's a new world order now, and you got to be realistic that with the dynamics of the way that the conference is set up, the conference play-in game, the championship game, the whole bit, it's going to be difficult, more difficult than ever for any team to pull off what we saw under the days of Pete Richardson. So you got to be realistic. The levels of dominance that we've seen, I think, like with Jackson under the cap, the veil of Coach Prime, so to speak. So you put everything into the mix. I mean, I think you got to be realistic. You got to have realistic expectations as a fan, Perry. And I think sometimes that they are unreasonable expectations, but the standard has been set, and you don't want to, back off the standard that people have been used to. So sometimes with great expectation comes great disappointment. But, I mean, you still look at the program. I mean, you're still playing for the championship on Championship Saturday. So in my condescending East Coast kind of way, I'd say get a life.
Don't do me like that, Mark. Look, and I say that because I was listening to Michael Irvin earlier this week, and he was talking about, they're still holding on to the championship aspirations as Cowboy fans, but he's like, there have been generations of people who've come and gone, and the fan base, people who have passed on from you got a whole new, like I'm talking to Mike. Mike is 22, who's the producer. He's 22. Should I say more?
Well,
he don't know nothing about the 90s. And the kids at Southern now don't know nothing about the 90s. So it's like we got to do something to recreate that now in the moment. And I think that's what the fan base do. Every year is that year. The same way Cowboy fans, same way Southern fans. This is the year. Every year feels like that year. It just feels like it's the year, not only to win the SWAC, but I'm talking about to win the Black College National Championship, right?
Well, I'm in D.C., so we're coming off of the high of Jaden Daniels, kind of raising the level of expectation to where next year anything less than a trip to the Super Bowl in just the second year is going to be a failure. So fans have been intoxicated by the success. You know what I'm saying?
Has it been an injection in the arm to the area, like you can feel the pride, like, yeah, even though it was like we fell short to the Super Bowl, but it just felt good to be back in a position like, here we go.
It did. Now the bar has been raised So if you don't get that far, and I think the bar was raised by Preet so high that, and the standard of excellence, the standard has been set so high, I'm not quite sure if you're going to see anybody dominate the conference the way he did. And you have to be able to creative enough to understand that, A, you got to hope that on the last 2 weeks of the season, you're in a position to win your division. That's a good thing because then you can play for the championship.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody looking to obliterate somebody, it's just not going to happen. Transfer portal, number of coaches coming into the league that are really, really good. You're going to have realistic expectations. You know, sometimes 8-3 is a good year when you've got teams that are competing at a national level, and I think that's got to be a more realistic expectation of where a lot of programs are, in particular Southern, because the days of dominance that we saw when Eddie Robinson was rolling through there and dismantling people, Pete Richardson to your earlier point, and more contemporarily with Coach Prime, I'm not quite sure we're ever going to see anybody dominant because of the way that the landscape of college has changed. You know what I'm saying? It's a different world order, and you can't expect things to be like they were back in the 90s. You know, when we could actually come out of our house and not feel like we could lose our lives.
And I would say,
just when a black man on the street.
And I look at it like this, you know, the conference has changed with so many teams coming, so many coaches coming into these programs, right? Last year, Cornell Maynard at that point was as they say, the old head in the room. He was the longest tenured coach, right? Now he's gone. You know, he's since out of there.
Remember, we're speaking in the past tense of the longest tenured coach.
He was.
He was.
And then you look at the overall idea of the conference, right? TC Taylor in year 2 perhaps has one of the best teams to come through the SWAC in a long time, just the way they dominated defensively, and then they had the pieces offensively with a strong run game and Irv Mulligan, and then you had just everything built around them, and they ran themselves all the way to a SWAC championship. Not only that, they ran themselves all the way to a Celebration Bowl victory. Now, when we look at the conference, and this is the conversation where I want to go with you, traditional coach over what we're starting to see, and let's look over in your neck of the woods on the East Coast, Delaware State and Norfolk. Delaware State going in the direction of getting Deshaun Jackson. Norfolk State going in the direction of getting Michael Vick. 2 guys who did not follow the traditional path that we typically see with our coaches, but 2 guys who we feel have resources and the ability to bring in things that maybe those traditional coaches couldn't quite bring into some programs that have been struggling for some time.
You know something? You got one of those bleep buttons here, because I was going to offer up that's a bunch of bull crap. All right, let's be real for a second. All right, to your point, it's a change in landscape. We all have to evolve to where it is as opposed to dealing with where it was. Okay? Now, it's a year-to-year thing in this league. Make no mistake about it. Again, I can't speak to you because of the transfer portal, NIL, the kid that you get that's going to be kind of like coming down to you from a major D1 school. The landscape of transfer is so much different. And quite frankly, when you're in a position like Southern, when you have a chance to, lock down that difference-making player, you have to make sure that, how can I say this? You want to treat that player coming into the SWAC as the way that you would treat him as an SEC player. And sometimes people want players who are different makers to take a less, and because it's for the cause. kids like that don't see it like that anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The whole loyalty piece and the value judgment that people of us like my age and Gen X and in your age like Gen Z, this generation don't see it like that. I don't agree with the way that they see it, but it is what it is. And if your life if your livelihood, I should say, is kind of built upon banking on people to perform at a high level, but they don't share your same vision, they don't share your same ethics, so to speak, then you end up in circumstances where you got unrealistic expectations that teams and programs can't live up to. So it's going to be interesting, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because we really don't know the influence of NIL just yet on HBCU sports all the way around. We're still coming to grips with it. I do admire Commissioner McClellan for at least understanding that, you know, this is an option that our schools have to be prepared for. You know what I'm saying? Thinking outside the box, so to speak. And until folks, quite frankly, can stop thinking inside the box, we're going to still have the long-standing arguments about this is what we could do if this particular athlete or these athletes would come back to black schools. All right, you're right. That is true. But how are you handling that transition?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And until, you know, quite frankly, and it's not just a Southern thing, it's an HBCU thing. And this notion that HBCUs have had for so long about, you know, black athletes ought to want to come there, well, they have options. So what happens when you have options? You make you got more chances to find some person or somebody that's willing to buy in to your philosophy. You know, I think you got to go ahead and move off of your philosophy to what's in the best interest of the player, and that's how the players are rolling and their families about them. So you got to be able to deal with that. And the mindset that they just going to take just because the cause, that's no more. It's a different generation. I'm not saying that I agree with it, but you got to adjust to the generation or you're going to get left behind. And I think that's what HBCUs have got to find out, generally speaking, not just Southern, is to make sure that they stand on the cutting edge of taking advantage of the landscape that you're in right now, as opposed to just want somebody to, you know, embrace your program because of the tradition and the cause. Because this generation of student athletes could really give less than a damn about tradition. You know what I'm saying?
The really good ones for sure.
They want to get theirs.
Yeah. Well, my money.
Serious,
what's the bag?
point blank.
The bag. That's
what's
all.
The bag, or better yet, or you give me a platform that I can get my thing off so that I can secure my bag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there are various layers to it, and the old school has to get out the way, Perry. All right, sorry, y'all. I may be knocking on 60, but I ain't as old as you fools who thinking that just because it was done like this in 1973, that a kid in 2024 or 25 is going to buy it. It ain't happening, y'all. It's just not. You know, you got young parents who are about securing the bag. This is the reality generation of parents who think that they can come up with, at the very least, a reality show or a podcast to get their brand on. You, as much as I hate it, you have to embrace it because that's the time. And if somebody going to hold on to old school virtues, you can hold on to being at the bottom end of the conference and end up, quite frankly, like Mississippi Valley. And who wants to be there?
I love it because you keep it 100 in the conversation that we're having. And if you're just tuning in, we're having conversations about the traditional versus the old school versus the traditional old school way versus the new school way. And I'm looking at Deshaun Jackson over at Delaware State, and I'm looking at Michael Vick at Norfolk State. For you, what kind of impact do both of those fellas have on programs who have been struggling, Mark?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I got a couple of friends that are close to both of those programs. And it's interesting to note that how these two former NFL players who really don't have any college experience have been able to get these jobs based upon the name and the cachet of what Coach Prime has done. Everybody ain't going to be successful. Everybody's not Coach Prime. Michael Vick has never coached before. He doesn't know how to organize nor galvanize a program. I bring that up because everybody is always comparing what happened with Prime and Jackson to what goes on everywhere. Prime just a different dude, y'all. I mean, he just got an it factor about him where he can go into, you know something? He's like Nick Saban. When Nick Saban calls a parent's house and said, I want to come over to visit you and talk about your son coming to play for Alabama.
You tell the whole neighborhood about it.
That's right. And Prime is that same way. So I think a lot of these HBCUs who bought into the notion that any dude that they get from the NFL is just going to win. Eddie George has helped that out because he's done it. But these are special people. I'm not quite sure that you can look for, coaches who don't have the cachet as a Prime to be as good as Prime. Now, I know that there was some conversation. The reason that Deshaun Jackson got it is because he's got ties with upper-level members in the administration of the university. So when he expressed an interest, he was at the top of the list because of the name, brand value, recognition in that community. Michael Vick is an icon. I mean, that's Allen Iverson on, the Tidewater Peninsula or whatever. There's nobody greater. So these opportunities that these players have gotten had better work for their various schools, because if they don't, then where do you go? I got my question marks about both of them. One thing we do know about Prime is that he had coached Shador and Shiloh, and he was able to get Travis Hunter. Can Michael Vick do that? There's that kind of quality talent in Tidewater. We know that, but can he? And then, well, there's no other way to put it. Sometimes Norfolk can be just straight ignorant on a variety of different of athletic departmental procedures. And I think the infrastructure with Ashley Robinson was a lot better than people give him credit for, creating the environment for Prime to take his team to the next level. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. To take that program and go to places where it hasn't been gone before. Just because Deshaun Jackson played for the Philadelphia Eagles and they're about, 45 minutes away from Delaware State's campus, I don't think that guarantees that they're going to be success. I know they're working on getting some recruits from California, but I got to be honest with you, having been to the less than great city of Dover, in a somewhat strange place that Delaware is, God bless Joe Biden, you're going to have to show me that you can get the kind of players, because I know Deshaun has, and my sources from Delaware State have telling me this, that there are a bunch of Cali players, maybe even a Cali quarterback that they're trying to get there. But how you recruit from anywhere in California to Dover? Yeah, show me.
Let me ask. You look at the idea, and I was having this conversation with one of my buddies from Prairie View, and literally he called me and he said, man, what do you think? Are you with the new age coach? And they call it the celebrity hire, but I'm like, former guys, but then I look at like Eddie Robinson Jr. at Alabama State. He had not coached. He came from real estate and then came from television. Now, Bubba McDowell was different because he had been around the program at Prairie View for a while. I look at even Doug Williams coming back to Grambling. That's considered a celebrity coach. Pete Richardson played in the league for the Buffalo Bills. Even Monty Coleman at UAPB. Of course, you're talking about out in that D.C. area. Everybody knows him. But I said, and this is how I looked at it. No, they may not all be successful, and they not all going to bring what Prime brought. But I look at Delaware State and I look at Norfolk State. Delaware State has not been relevant to me that I feel in my lifetime in football, right? I heard about the Delaware State teams in the 80s, right? I've heard about Delaware State
when
in the
I
80s.
was in college, yeah. they were running the wing T and winning championships with the wing T.
And when did that fizzle out?
About the time Jay Walker became a senior.
There we go. And we're talking in the 90s, mid-90s.
Right. So that's just how it is, man. And to your point, everybody ain't going to have that lightning in a bottle. I'm just wondering, can you galvanize? Now, I will say this, in Deshaun's favor, if he has that way with the community and the corporate folks, then he may be able to do a thing or two.
See,
that's the thing that concerns me, because you got disarray in that Delaware State athletic department and amongst the athletic administration. And I think the downside to that particular hour right now is higher than the upside to me.
And Mark, this is why I'm saying it, because the coach may not be successful. Deshaun and Mike may not win a championship, but can they lead the program even if they don't win better than what they found, and maybe with a facility upgrade? Maybe, like, even I just say the slightest thing with Deion. I mean, Jackson State's been around forever with football and never had a adequate practice football field. Didn't have an adequate practice facility. I mean, a football facility for the players. You talking about getting treatment and everything else. Maybe by the time they leave, can Delaware State and Norfolk gain something out of it? Because listen, the conversation is the traditional coach. I always take Eric Dooley. He's never left the SWAC West. He's coached at UAPB, Grambling, Prairie View, and Southern. What does he bring to the table, besides the university does more for him than he does for the university? I'm using that as an example.
Yeah, because what happens is that the fact that you put a big name on a school like that, it's supposed to give them a brand.
Yeah.
You're supposed to create that. This is the Deshaun Jackson brand. But how does that look like on the field? You know what I'm saying?
At this point, am I focused on facilities to see what resources can he bring in here?
Well, see, here's the deal, P. When it comes to Delaware State, Lee Hall had embarked on a 5-year mission to improve the athletic facilities. And it was the same mission that he had, because quietly, Lee Hall is the last coach to win a football championship at Morgan State. That was a 5-way tie, and had to go to some kind of
rock, paper, scissors,
mathematical Florida.
Yeah, flip a coin.
You know what I'm saying?
Wrestle me for it.
but they did go to the University of Buffalo or whatever, and they played the game and the whole bit. But Lee Hall was trying to do the upgrades to the program and things like that. And see, there's disarray inside the athletic department at Delaware State. There's a disconnection between the athletic department and some of those marketing people. And so my friends are like, all right, we'll see how this thing's going to work. I don't know if I would say cautiously optimistic, but they are cautiously optimistic in Norfolk right now. And the question for Michael Vick right now is, everybody is wondering, where's he going to get his staff from? Where are the pool of resources that he can pull to get competent college football coaches to come in there? Because we all know that in a perfect world, a college football coach is really the CEO of the program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, is Michael Vick or Deshaun Jackson ready to be a CEO of a program? Do they know how to get good people, delegate responsibilities, and then they can go out and get the money? Because say what you want about Coach Brown, he know how to get that money.
He know how to go get that bag.
Dude, he showed you that he was about getting that bag when he was making bad rap songs, and he told you, must be the money, right? Remember that?
Must be the money.
and he has moved it along into a flourishing career. It's about the money. Everybody thinks they can do, all right, we're going to get ourselves a pro player. We're going to do what Coach Prime done. You don't do that. He's special, okay? Understand, there are layers to this thing. You've got legends. You've got all-stars. You've got superstars. And then you got those who just hang around long enough to get the retirement paycheck because you hung around for longevity. Prime was a difference maker. He was a force multiplier. I'm not quite sure that Michael Vick or Deshaun Jackson are force multipliers. And when you sign dudes like that in markets like that, you're expecting them to do great things. I got my doubts about the resources in Delaware, certainly. And in Norfolk, how can I say it? They kind of got an unrealistic clown type of fan base who seems to think that there's a great deal of reverence for what they did. But with all due respect, Aaron Sparrow and the boys ain't coming back no time soon. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that happened already.
Everybody watching us on our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. It costs nothing. And watching us on our Facebook Live, hit that follow and that like button. Mark, good morning. We got it going on this morning, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I mean, you hit the nail on a subject that's very important to me. And I was thinking during the break that I'll be remiss if I got this out. If I didn't get this out, I should say. The problem that I have most of all with guys like Deshaun Jackson and Michael Vick being gifted jobs because of their NFL cachet, it really takes the motivation or fairness, if you ask me, from grinders.
And I want to talk about that because you're talking about what we consider the traditional coaching. And I'm looking at the coaching hires. Take Sam Shade at Alabama A&M. You brought up Tremaine Jackson, who came from Valdosta. Sam was at Miles.
And that's where I want to talk about.
You even look at right here at home in Baton Rouge with Coach Terrence Graves, who has been around the circuit in many different places, who have put in the work and the time over the years to be where they at today.
And that's my my point. And that's why I dig Anton Goff. Anton Goff is a friend of mine. He was athletic director at Bowie State, and he was smart enough to realize that when it came time to elevate the guy to the right position, he got himself a grinder who came up playing football at Bowie State and the whole bit. And the next thing you know, Bowie State is in the Final Four of the Division II National Championship. So the moral to the story is we've seen a guy who's ascended from basically, and Damon is my guy. Damon Wilson at Morgan State is my guy. He's a tremendous defensive coach. But the way that the landscape is going right now, the guy who's grinded and given himself to the cause is the guy that's not worthy because of the major college, ex-pro player who's supposed to bring more cachet. And everybody's not Coach Prime. It ain't going to work out like that. So I got real concerns about whether or not Michael Vick or Deshaun Jackson is going to work. I don't think that athletic administrative infrastructure is like it was when Ashley Robinson made the pitch to get Coach Prime. And until schools start realizing that you got to have an infrastructure in place, or at least an administration that's willing to embrace innovation, you ain't going nowhere these days. And these names sound good. They bring a lot of hype and attention. But if they fail, they can be more damaging to your program than the upside if you had won. And I think there are a lot of lazy athletic administrators who are looking for the great big hire but don't know all the elements that it goes to creating a program. And until you have that, then we're going to have some significant issues with underachieving programs who are based upon unrealistic expectations because folks had solid NFL careers. We've seen NFL players who couldn't coach in the NFL. We're now, I think the former Giants running back, Tyrone Wheatley, who was given a job at Morgan before Lee Hall. Dude wouldn't interview me after I wrote in a column up here in the Afro-American newspaper that I thought the program was a rudderless boat in the middle of the Chesapeake. And quite frankly, when you win like maybe 2, 4, 6 games in 3 years, you failed. And I could see a lot more of that happening potentially in Norfolk and in Dover than the success that we saw with Coach Prime or Eddie Robinson Jr. or, some of the more Eddie George, prominent HBCU coaches that went from, the sidelines to a head coaching gig. And I'm not quite sure that just because you got Michael Vick in Norfolk or Deshaun Jackson in Dover, that it's going to make a dramatically significant difference when you still got to beat North Carolina Central. All right, Morgan's going to be tough. Howard's going to be tough. You know what I'm saying?
Don't forget about Chennis Berry.
Well, that's the gold standard right there now. Everybody going to have to elevate that program to beat him. So I will go on the record as saying Michael Vick will not beat Chennis Berry. Okay, let's put that out there right now. He's not walking into the league and beating Chennis Berry. It's not happening. All right, we've seen that already, dog.
And Trey Oliver is a very open coach. So I can only imagine when MEAC Media Day, Football Media Day get here, Trey Oliver is very open with his words and very, very blunt.
Yes. And a damn good coach too.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily cool with the way that North Carolina Central has lost its class in terms of the way that they handle things. It was it was one thing to be an outstanding athletic institution, but it's another thing when you have outstanding athletics coupled with classy people. The class level of North Carolina State amongst their fan base has dropped dramatically, but Trey Oliver going to have his team in position every year to win a championship, and he don't care. He beat Prime. Let's be clear about that.
Mark, let me ask you something. I got about 3 to 4 minutes before I go to break. I had the pleasure of being able to call the Bayou Classic with you this year, and you had an opportunity to look at Terrence Graves and this Southern team who won a SWAC Western Division title and went on to play Jackson State in the SWAC championship. Coming into year 2 under Terrence Graves and what you saw, what did you take away from seeing Southern yourself at the Bayou Classic as a football team under Terrence Graves?
That's a great question because I left there thinking that this is a guy that's still, even his first year last year, and is building the program in the likeness of what he likes, right? What he wants it to be. And I think he's done a great job with that. And I think that I like the fact that he's a grinder. I like the fact that he does well. Southern's name and brand and reputation is going to always give you an opportunity to get an elite caliber athlete. So you put a grinder with that reputation, and I think there's a foundation of stability that is there inside that program. If the athletic administrators and the boosters who have unrealistic expectations all the time don't get so caught in their craziness that they won't let Coach Graves go ahead and build it, because you get to the SWAC championship game, and let's say they go back to the SWAC championship and lose again, then the whisperers start coming out.
Oh.
But remember, your season ends in the championship game, and I think there's got to be some realistic expectation on what success is and sustainability. And sometimes I think Jaguar Nation can inhibit the long-term stability because they caught up in the here and now. and maybe next season won't be as great as last season was, but then you got 2 more years down the road where you can do something big. So I like where Southern is right now. I know that it's one of the more demanding jobs in HBCU football. It is a pressure cooker. The standard is the standard, and it's a very high standard. But I like Coach Graves. I think you can feel good about Coach Graves, and he is committed to the program. This ain't no stepping stone to him. He wants to be great. He wants to be remembered with Coach Mumford, Pete, Marino, Cassim, the whole bit. So let's give him a shot. I mean, he got this SWAC championship game in this new world order, and give the man a shot. I mean, the thing the old school has to understand, and this is what bugs me, and I'm framing it in a Southern context and channel my Rick Pitino side. Pete Richardson is not walking through the door on the sidelines no more, ladies and gentlemen.
He calling the
it's
games,
not
though.
Happening. He's calling the games, and he earned the right to be like Saban, okay? Let him be Southern's Nick Saban on the radio, okay? And let's find the new guy. And as we saw, at least at year 1, Terrace Graves is no Kalen DeBoer. That's all I'm saying.
This is true. My man, Mark Gray. Mark, I appreciate you coming on with me, man. Listen, it has been a hell of a we got to rock and roll. It's almost like once we get started, it ain't no stopping us.
Yeah. So let's talk some basketball down the line, because I think this is going to be a real interesting stretch drive in every conference. I'm not quite sure that there's one overwhelmingly dominant HBCU team who can say that they are the elite of the elite, but that just makes it so much better because you got so many teams. And when we get to March, it's going to be crazy in the MEAC and the SWAC. And I will be on the call for the CIAA semifinals and finals at the very least when we get down to that fun part. So we'll talk more about that as we get closer to the end of the regular season.
What I do, man, bring you on next week, and we'll talk some basketball then. We'll jump into that side of things.
Yes, sir, because I ain't got no reason to watch football in D.C. no more after what happened over the weekend. But I want to say this. Hey, if you on in Baton Rouge, thank God for Jaden Daniels. And I'm glad the organization listened to me and picked him. It was a great season. And I love the fact that that's the dude that I think can be a quarterback in D.C. for the next 15 years and give me 2 more trophies.
I hope he brings that excitement back to the city, man. This time with a trophy. Man, Mark, appreciate you for coming on this morning, man. As always, thank you.
Hey, no worries, bro. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, my man, Mark Gray.